4 generations ago, my species, the Malonics, sent radio signals out into the universe. We began to doubt that life existed at any place other than our homeworld of Malonius, at least until my forefathers met Anaglitha. She was the ambassador for a species known as humanity. She gave us the impression that she was a benefactor, and only good things could come from an alliance with humans. She lied. Since then, several Malonics have formed countless rebel militias to overthrow the human invaders, I being in one of them. My name is Mathezr Bresak, and this is the story of my civilization's path to independence. In order to fight back effectively, we have embraced the qualities of an animal indigenous to the human's homeworld, known as a fox. We have had to become cunning, creative, and dynamic in order to overcome the gap between the power each of our races has. Tenzin sat in front of the screen, watching the data about the radio waves pour over it. He had joined the radio project in the hopes that his planet could find anyone else out there in space. It had been 18 years since he had been stationed at the Tropical Research Array, and there were no signs as of yet. The Malonics had been sending out signals for over 200 years, more than enough time for a species of creatures with their level of intelligence to respond. Each message broadcast contained several important facts about them that any other species would recognize. The prime numbers up to 37, the Hakorok sequence up to the 11th number, the double helix structure of DNA, an image of a Malonic man and woman, the fission equation, and the relative location of Malonius in relation to the other 50 stars nearby, just to mention a few. Yet, there was no response. Some Malonics were even stating that they were the only ones in the universe, and the radio project had received cuts in funding from the scientific and military institutions of the nations on Malonius. Instead, the governments had turned to building spaceships and colonizing their system, hoping one day to build a light-speed starship or even achieve superluminal travel. Tenzin continued to watch the numbers and syllables of each type of radio wave received. Finally, something caught his attention. It was a unique syllabonumeric string. He then activated the decoding program and ran the received wave through it. Just like the messages the Malonics had sent out for 2 centuries, the message exhibited signs of intelligence, a prime number sequence up to 97, the Hakorok sequence up to the 19th number, a graphical representation of DNA, an image of a man and woman from the transmitter species, and the fission equation. In addition to these signs, there were differences. One was the location of 3 different worlds the species had colonized in relation to each other, and the other was the location of a spacecraft that was bound for Malonius. The craft would arrive in 1 month. Tenzin reached for the telephone and notified his superiors. They had found life elsewhere in the universe. Over the course of a month, a heated discussion between the great powers of Malonius and their respective alliances ensued. It was not a debate about how to best handle the incoming probe. It was about maintaining hegemony in their respective corners of Malonius. Ultimately, the Mathedran civilization was the most insistent on intercepting the probe. If they received it, maybe they would learn about the species it came from in order to protect themselves from them and gain their advanced technology. Additionally, they were more powerful than the Tedria, Yansk, and Xoine civilizations, so they claimed to have every right to intercept the probe and distribute the information. But the other nations outside of Mathedran hegemony were concerned about this. The Mathedran government was known for inconsistency in their telling of events and was struggling to keep itself together. If the Mathedran Space Force intercepted the probe, it would provide a boost to the morale and pride of the citizens, and show the other 3 great powers who were the true masters of Malonius. As a result, Tenzin and his superior Mandro found themselves on the Mathedran intercept craft when the probe arrived. They watched with the other astronauts, soldiers, scientists, and royalty of Mathedran as the probe was brought into the bay of the craft. Once the airlock at the front of the vessel dilated shut, the space repressurized and the AI permitted access to the space. Tenzin, Mandro, and a score of soldiers approached the probe. It was oval-shaped, at least 9 rat long, 18 rat wide, and 3 rat tall, the size of a small house on Malonius. The outside was painted white, but the front of it was painted black. Several nozzles that were presumably the engines of the craft were at the rear of it. A panel on the side of the craft lifted upwards. It was a type of door. A member of the species exited. Unlike the Malonics, she lacked body-covering fur. Instead, her flesh was visible and smooth. The head was also different from a Malonic, as the neck was narrower than the head, the ears were smaller and rounded, and she lacked a snout. Her hair was long and braided, and had the color of tarnished gold. "Greetings," she said at last. "I am called Anaglatha. I come in peace." Her accent was unlike any on Malonius. She spoke perfect Mathezr, however, and she seemed to remain calm in the presence of an alien species. "I have come to share the history of our world with you," she said. "We hope you will appreciate the great lengths humanity has come to share our culture with you." She then began to recount an abridged history of her species. Humanity had spent many years in pursuing a path to the stars, yet they had only spent about 3 centuries with travel outside of their solar system. And their home system was the capital of their empire, which they were careful not to reveal to too many, because, like the Malonics, they had also sent out messages without care for 200 years before they realized it could bring about the destruction of their species. However, Tenzin thought that maybe the tale applied to the Malonics. Malonius was a sparsely populated world, but despite this, food rationing was present in the majority of nations, due to their increasing focus on the military and the bellicose space race between the Malonic great powers. Those deemed as crucial to society received more nutritious, larger portions, and those deemed as expendable received smaller, degraded meals. As a result, the Malonics were ripe for conquering. "Will you conquer us?" Tenzin asked. Anaglatha laughed. "No," she responded. "I am just one among many humans. We were just stating our collective paradigm." Anaglatha continued, mentioning the admission of 8 more species into the Empire of Sol. When a race joined, they received new technology, such as superluminal travel, from humans and could freely participate in every aspect of imperial life, including running as an advisor for the Rende Emperor. "Rende?" one of the soldiers asked. "It means Emperor of the People in one of the languages on Earth," Anaglatha explained. "You humans have superluminal travel?" Mandro asked. "Yes," Anaglatha bragged. "We can use artificial wormholes known as stargates to travel to destinations. However, if there is not a complex in the system of arrival, we are stuck because we cannot maintain a hole for 2-directional travel without the stargates." "Then how did you arrive?" another soldier asked. "I was put into cryostasis and launched from a complex," Anaglatha explained. "I was awoken 3 days before today. My craft could sustain me for the journey." Everyone was now infatuated with Anaglatha's tale of Earth. Could they have this technology and level of equality if they joined? "We must talk with the leaders of Malonius before we decide to join," someone answered. He was Mathezr Bresak, a Mathezran ambassador and former intelligence officer. That was when Anaglatha made a mistake. In an impatient tone, she responded, "Okay." Several days passed after the encounter with Anaglatha. Mandro and Bresak stood in front of the World Forum of Malonius to discuss the encounter. The representatives from the great powers were present, along with their leaders and commanders-in-chief. The two had recounted all of what Anaglatha had stated about the Empire of Sol. Now they waited on a decision. "How do we know she's telling the truth?" the Teria representative challenged. "Earth could be a wasteland, and the Rende Emperor could be a dictator worse than the Mathezran king and military chief." King Sav and Chief Kye of Mathezranso sneered at him. Teria was always the purveyor of separatism from Mathezranso in the World Forum. "We'll just have to see," the Chancellor of the Forum declared. "Ask more about the terms with Earth. Don't be pig-headed, be open-minded. See what else she has to offer." "Yes, milady," Bresak responded. "And that goes for everyone," she stated. "No mention of the geopolitics here. Just focus on what trade there would be." Everyone nodded, except King Sav. Mandro and Bresak were the least concerned about Sav when it came to Mathezranso. Instead, they were concerned about Kye. Tolor Kia was genetically and cybernetically enhanced in ways most other Malonic soldiers were not. Additionally, he had defeated the opposition of a civil war and numerous terrorist attacks in Mathezr, so through multiple deception tactics. He was Sov's right hand. So, when Kia nodded in response to the Chancellor, the two representatives of the radio project were immediately hesitant. A week passed after the meeting. As with the probe interception, the Mathezrans had gotten to Anaglatha first. The Mathezran news outlets set up cameras and began filming the interview to be conducted. Anaglatha was questioned about the admittance into the Empire of Sol in every imaginable way. Scientists, businessmen, and military representatives probed for information. Finally, Anaglatha seemed to break. She abruptly stated, "Well, you want to know one thing about Earth? We've mastered biological engineering." "Really?" one scientist exclaimed. "Yes, everything that serves our needs is based on genetic engineering. Simple bioremediation provides for our water supply. Never again have we used chemicals to preserve food or treat wastewater." "By everything, you mean everything?" a businessman asked. "Almost. Our starships, technology, and buildings are still made from non-renewable sources like stone and metal, but we mine for these resources on other celestial objects." "Do you ever use these organisms for warfare?" a military representative asked. Anaglatha was silent. She seemed to have been struck to her core. "I've told you enough already," she bit back at him. "I'll divulge nothing more." "Oh," he responded, offended. Anaglatha stood up from the chair. "Cameras off. This interview is over." "Miss," a journalist began. "You do it now," Anaglatha told her. She then turned around and headed for her ship. An hour later, the interview was uploaded to the Malonic internet. Kia watched the whole interview with his subordinates as soon as it released. On conclusion, they began to discuss the situation and their actions. "Well, men," he began, "what do you think?" "It's a gamble," Sub-Chief Rest Roar replied. "I don't like it at all." "We're being played," Sub-Chief Zdare Chesk hollered. "They'll conquer us. They use that biotech for nefarious purposes." "King Sav has been a weak leader," Kia began. "I should have overthrown him years ago." "Chief Kia, may I state something?" Sub-Chief Faz Hyo interrupted. "If you must," Kia snarled as he sank into his chair. "Maybe Sub-Chiefs Chesk and Roar are right. However, what if this is the goal of the Empire of Sol, to have us turn on each other?" "What do you mean?" Kia asked, leaning forward and adding with a tinge of suspicion. "Are you a Sav loyalist?" "I'm just a soldier doing his duty on the council. We pledged an oath to defend Mathezr, so if it is the humans' goal of conquering us, why not have us do their dirty work of slaughter?" "They'll be killing their messenger," Roar erupted. "Doesn't matter," Hyo coolly stated. "We've long speculated that other species have a different moral code than us. Maybe to them, sacrificing one or many in the name of conquest or maintaining stability is acceptable according to their thought process. They lack respect for life as it is, experimenting with genetically modified organisms." "Excuse me, but you are a GMO," Roar interrupted, intending to insult Hyo with his statement. After all, the Mathezran military forcibly enhanced anyone who was not enlisted through gene therapy and implants to perform better in their roles. "GMO or not, we all can agree that it is not normal to excessively overuse a certain technology," Hyo continued, mildly fazed by Roar's comment. "They said they use GMOs in every way of life. What if they made a monster through genetic technology to kill en masse as a way of keeping a population in line? After all, we've seen the public examples of criminal executions fail to deter crime." "Well, we'll just see," Kia snarled. Then the doors to the chamber opened, and Anaglatha stepped in. Instead of the scarlet dress she typically wore, she was clothed in a green camouflage dress reminiscent of Mathezr battle uniforms. "So," she began, "you want to know about our genetic technology? Step outside." Everyone burst into laughter. Then she snapped her fingers, and the men present flinched in horror at what they saw. The gene therapy they underwent had hardened each to what could be expected, but never were they prepared to see what was coming around Anaglatha towards them. Several six-legged animals with dark brown flesh and two independently moving compound eyes on stalks walked into the room. On the backs of each was grafted a type of cannon, though the metal seemed to extend into their backs. Each moved the feelers on the fronts of their heads, feeling the ground periodically as they moved. "They are a small testimony to our power," Anaglatha droned. "Like humans and Malonics, they are a bioelectrical organism. However, unlike us, they never eat because they are capable of photosynthesis, and their joints are infused with crystals for piezoelectric power. Their cannon, I wish I could go further, but let's say it shoots a high-power microwave at an enemy." You, Kia began. He moved his hulking frame from his chair and sped towards Anaglatha. One of the cannons rotated, pointing at his barrel chest. He then toppled to the ground, reaching for his heart before he exploded in a gory spectacle. "He's dead," she explained. "Now, get outside. I want you to see the rest of what I'm telling you." The 8 members of the Mathezr Military Council followed her out to a balcony on the outside of the building. In the plain daylight, they saw multiple ships overhead. On the ground, several tall six-legged creatures armed with soldiers and artillery sped along the ground, and more were being brought in by large flying creatures. Multiple buildings were on fire. "You see here," she continued, "this is what a typical attack looks like. We have more covert ways of blending in." "What do you mean?" Roar asked. "We can approximate a species' genetic code based upon their phenotype. We just scan a planet's population with microwaves, infrared, and ultraviolet. Then we can create a robot based on that, cover it in synthetic flesh, and deploy it among the population. It's the perfect spy." "But how do the spies function if they don't know the language?" Hyo asked. "We can analyze mouth movements through our radiological scanning techniques. From there we figure out what everything means." Anaglatha paused. "That's how I knew the Mathezr language. The whole vocabulary, archaic and modern, is programmed into a databank in my neural implants." The prompt was simple. "You heard about our advanced technology. You should have suspected that we had advanced war technology. All 8 races we've conquered so far have demonstrated various resistance or interrogative techniques. Only yours have been the most thorough. Don't worry, we were just like you once. We would have been suspicious of an alien messenger who bragged about our species with such glory. You wanted to know about our resources? We take them from conquered worlds. In return, we give them starships, weapons, and biotech. Then it is expected they start our colonies for us in the surrounding regions of space. So you get to see space for yourselves. However, you are just part of our empire." "And what about those positions? Do we have a choice?" "Eventually. Your race must prove itself worthy first. Show us obedience for 5 consecutive generations on the homeworld and 3 consecutive generations on the colonies. Only then can you run for office." Hyo bowed his head. The Malonics had been defeated. As I reflect on the actions of my forefathers, I can't help but feel that they tried their best. As I finish typing up this recounting of the events, I just know that one day we will be victorious. Humanity made a mistake. Yeah, they had the better technology and a larger population of slave soldiers, but there is one thing that they overlooked. When I learned about Earth animals, there was one creature that stood out to me that was known as a fox, which resembles a Malonic, but is quadrupedal. It is sneaky, smart, and dynamic, because even with the advanced technology of the humans to keep predators from ravaging their farms, the foxes still rob them of their poultry and eggs. In fact, there are even some languages that honor the fox's craftiness in certain idioms. With this knowledge, me and my fellow rebels have embraced the qualities of the fox. With our light-speed starships, portable microwave weaponry, and secret mastery of bidirectional wormholes using only one stargate, we will be able to overthrow our oppressors, form an interstellar nation for Malonics by Malonics, and eventually liberate the other 10 races oppressed by the Rende Emperor and his minions. What the humans meant to be our grave, or at least our chains, has proven to be what lifted us from the dust and made us strong." I sprinted through the Mathezr rainforest, holding my microwave rifle in my hand. Of all the things humanity has given us, microwave lasers, or Mathezrs, have been one of the most useful in our rebellion. While we still use conventional bullets like humanity, our small group of scientists has reverse engineered the large Mathezr cannons mounted to the humans' genetically engineered animals and artillery stations, allowing us to have the advantage. Since the Mathers are able to cut through armor and buildings, it gives us an advantage in our rebel movement. I crouched down behind a log with the other teammates from my squadron. They were Mathezr Bresak, my own brother, Therios Lepsakian, a rifleman like me and Semchar, Tiekse Zundin, our explosives expert, Zvonirak Lursak, a breacher and heavy rifleman, and Chula Krebinov, our tech guy who can break through any security system. I took up a pair of binoculars from Chula and looked through them. Beyond it was Kesark Bastion, a military base left by the former Mathezr military. When the humans dissolved the World Forum and governments of individual nation-states on Malonius, it only left a world state policed by them. Despite this, the bases and forts left by some 100 nations before the invasion were still in service, but with human occupants. While they are a risky target because of their heavy security, if we can just get one of them, we can turn the tide in our favor, especially Kesark Bastion. As I plot my attack on this strategic location, I remember that my brethren on other worlds are plotting similar ambushes. With the former Mathezran capital of Osirax being made the world capital of Malonius, our only hope to reclaiming our planet is to take the Kesark Bastion due to its strategic position. While it is about 1,000 Vigesserat from the edge of Osirax, we can use the base as a strategic location to launch a quick attack on the city to liberate it. Once we take Osirax, we can use the complex, winding streets to lay traps for the humans if they try to retake it. Through the binoculars, I saw the hordes of human soldiers in service of the Empire of Sol. Because of their seeming appearance of uniformity in armor patterns, build, and height, some have joked that they were robots. Considering that humanity mainly uses genetically engineered animals with cybernetic implants to fulfill most of their roles, and only uses robots for spying, I find it likelier that they are just clones. They patrolled along the bridge spanning the chasm that separated the bastion from the rest of the jungle. It would be difficult to get in there. "Is it good, Squad Chief?" Semchar asked me. "No, Char," I told him. Turning to Chula, I ordered, "Hand me the quantum radio." He handed me a small rectangular box with a CRT screen. This was another human invention that has aided our efforts. Because there are chips within each quantum radio that house an atom quantumly entangled with others in a network, it has allowed for us to have truly secretive communication, enabling us to spread our efforts to the other planets in our system we've colonized. "Sub-Legion Chief Korkaz," I requesting aerial assistance. "No problem." I then saw a V formation of small jets fly over the mountains. Out of their fuselages came several explosives. The human soldiers heard them falling, resulting in them aiming their fire at our aircraft. I saw one of them motion towards the jungle, and then put in a request on the side of his helmet. I saw a large winged creature with a frightening appearance struggle out of a cave underneath the mesa it was on. "Oh no," I said under my breath. Instead of the usual hexapods used by humans to police our world due to their rapid speed and body-mounted Mathezr cannons, the pteropyrines are a species of flying animals used to rapidly burn down large tracts of land. I remember my grandparents still brooding about the large farms set ablaze by one pteropyrine as an example by humanity to remind the Malonics not to rebel. My assumption was that the pteropyrine had been sent to scorch the Mathezran jungle in order to burn us out. "It's time for our assault," I shouted. All 6 of us sprang up and ran back into the jungle. Deep inside was an all-terrain vehicle that we piled into. After I started it up, we raced through the jungle to the bridge. I had Chula send out another message, asking the other squads to converge on the bridge. If the pteropyrine was going to burn down the jungle, we were going to give the humans a surprise since we were charging before they wanted us to come to them. Like a fox, we were being unpredictable. The human soldiers, not expecting us, had a difficult time assembling their ranks. I heard the crack of the bullets and saw the flash of fire from their muzzles. I heard a tire pop, and the vehicle we drove skid along the stone of the bridge. As soon as we stopped, we all hopped out, firing our rifles. The only drawback to our Mathezr weapons is the long recharge time, necessitating the use of an additional system of bullets to allow for additional fire. Because Vonarak and Therios were the strongest of us, I ordered them to flip the all-terrain vehicle on its side, creating a barrier between us and the humans. As I ducked behind the vehicle to load a fresh magazine into my gun and let the Mathezr array cool down, I saw several other all-terrain vehicles bound out of the jungle just before the pteropyrene began breathing fire into the forest canopy. I heard the humans fall back in a panic, with the sound of metal collapsing on the ground at random. We were winning the battle. I ordered my squad to come out of cover, and we rushed to the human front. In addition to the super soldiers, I saw the standard hexapods and blimp beasts used in human warfare approaching. I tensed as I saw a blimp beast glide over the ranks of humans. Before the invasion by the Empire of Sol, many Malonics would have balked at the plausibility of certain creatures like the pteropyrene and the blimp beasts. However, the presence of a blimp beast is ominous. Originally a failed experiment created in the process of fine-tuning the pteropyrene genome, the blimp beast was filled with the flammable gases a pteropyrene created and exhaled once ignited. However, the blimp beast only accumulated gases and could never expel them from its body, leading its gas-storing organs to inflate and become heavily pressurized with volatile gases when the skin could stretch no more. Because of the danger posed by the gases inside of a blimp beast, it posed an immediate threat to both the humans and the Malonic Liberation Army. I aimed my gun at the blimp beast while it was over the heads of the human soldiers. I then saw its storage organs expand and quiver from the pressure created by the Mathezr before they ruptured in a fiery explosion that threw many of the humans over the guide rails of the bridge. My other comrades completed this action several times with the other blimp beasts, blowing up the hexapods as best as they could. Because of their back-mounted Mathezr cannons, the hexapods posed more of a threat than humans did in war, as a blast could leave a cannon and one would not know they were the target until they felt their hearts begin to swell from increased intracellular pressure. With most hexapods dead and the remaining humans cornered at gunpoint, we had taken Kesark Bastion. My commander for the mission, Sub-Legion Chief Korkaz, ordered celebrations for everyone. There was an assortment of delicacies and ales in the Bastion larder, and most of us indulged upon these treats. As I drank my tumbler of ale and devoured a large slice of sugar-coated cake, I could not help but feel transported back to when I lived in Osirax. While the Empire of Sol was harsh, they did improve some things for us to assume the image of benefactors. One of these was a better food distribution system. The original ration system was too nepotistic, leaving most of the Malonic population starving. The new system gave everyone, or at least most, a diverse amount of staple foods and luxury comestibles scheduled for different frequencies to keep us all happy. Yet it was not enough to keep my brother and I from exchanging our comfortable life as prospective logistics workers on Malonius for service in the Malonic Liberation Army. While the leader of the army had said that this mission would be the riskiest yet, I felt like there should have been more of a struggle on the part of the humans. Despite my festive mood, I felt that we were being set up. One day passed and there was no attack. The next day, we received our answer. Korkaz ushered me into his office. As we watched the scene play out on the CRT monitor, I could not help but stress. Nikor Hyo, a plump Makedran in a suit and crown who was the puppet governor of Malonius for the Empire of Sol, sat in an oversized Hedra fur chair. Next to him was his advisor Rir Takai, a dark gray alien with 3 fins coming out of a triangular head, signifying his species as a Coriad. There was also a Noglitha, now an elderly woman kept alive and maintaining a somewhat youthful appearance through repeated telomere extension treatments. Malonic Liberation Army, Nikor began. We hope you are enjoying Kesark Bastion. We've read your manifesto about being like a fox. Well, you forgot about one thing. Some foxes can get trapped. While we may not be able to stop your attacks, we can find ways to lure you into the traps. Despite the location and importance of your new fortress, it is the prime trap for you. I hope you prepare for our attack, testing out a new form of bioengineered creatures, and then you will face a death appropriate for traitors. Glory to the Rende Emperor and the Empire of Sol. Then, the abridged version of the anthem of the Empire of Sol. a catchy exotic tune that began with an a cappella choir singing in the imperial scholastic and court language of Mandarin, followed by an assortment of stringed and wind instruments, concluded the propaganda piece. I broke a sweat. There would be a surprise attack on us at any moment. "I'm summoning a ship to evacuate us," Korkaz began. "Prepare for departure. I want this place to explode. If we can't have it, I'm not going to let a bunch of furless freaks use it instead." I nodded. I radioed to my other teammates, and we convened in the armory, gathering enough weapons to defend ourselves. When Korkaz notified us our evacuation craft had arrived, we all rushed to the surface. As we descended the steps, I trembled at the sight before me. Several bulbous creatures with 8 long legs and several mandibles around a beak stalked towards us. While they lacked any cannons and intimidating pouches of gas on them, they let out a perpetual low growl, probably for echolocation since they lacked eyes. "Open fire!" I ordered as I fired several bullets at them. I saw them bleed orange fluid when my bullets pierced their soft flesh. After a few seconds, the orange liquid caught fire on its own, covering the creature. It then exploded, sending infernal torrents everywhere. "Run!" I shouted at my teammates. As we charged between the large creatures, I heard the evacuation craft land. The creatures began to scatter at the sound of the ship engines, giving us some space. I sent my teammates aboard the evacuation craft first, staying behind with Semchar to hold off the creatures. As I ordered Semchar to board the evacuation craft, I saw the beak of a creature open and a thick cord shoot out of it. It stuck to Semchar's chest and drug him towards it. "Mathezr!" I heard him scream as Korkaz fired several rounds into the creature. "Get out of here! Live to fight another day!" I then saw him fire his mazer at the creature. It ruptured in an explosion of burning liquid. "No!" I shouted as I felt Zvonarak grab me by the collar and drag me into the craft. The door slammed shut, obscuring my view. I walked to the rear of the craft and sat down on the bench, looking out the window at another transport heading for a starship. I turned the CRT television on, watching the latest broadcast. Several of these traps had been set up around the Empire of Sol, luring the Malonic Liberation Army and several smaller rebel factions into them. One by one, they were being purged. If they evacuated a planet because of the threat of an attack, they left the bluffing government under the Empire of Sol to take several important bases, sometimes those that housed rebel technology that they could then reverse engineer. If the rebels did not evacuate a planet, an attack of some sort followed through, and on those worlds where the puppet governments bluffed an attack and the rebels stayed, the war was being fought, but without the rebels being able to receive future reinforcements. Yet, through this all, I felt a sense of ennui. I had lost my brother back on Malonius, and this war was gaining more casualties as the minutes passed today. The traps had worked. I looked back out the window at the spaceship we were approaching. When all else failed, there was Excelsior Citadel, the last refuge for the Malonic Liberation Army and any other rebel groups we had allied ourselves with. It had been built for a time like this. If our lunar fortresses around the gas giant Tessiab fell, we would head there to rebuild and launch our counterattack. I stretched in my capsule bed as the bombs shook the ground. Luckily, our bunker was located 87 rat under the surface of the small moon we had claimed, far enough underground to resist the impacts. 2 of my comrades rolled out of their capsules. "They're shelling us," I told them. Mathezr Bresak responded to me. "Looks like duty calls," he said. I saw the other soldiers under my command, Tieksi Zundin, Therios Lepsaxian, and Chula Krebinoth, stand up and stretch. After we dressed ourselves in our uniforms, I began the generalized morning exercise routine before I sent everyone to different gymnasiums to target their specialized skills. After engaging with a hand-to-hand combat training robot for an hour, I joined my men in the canteen. As we drank our vitamin-dense juice and devoured our variously portioned servings of breaded hedra meat, berries and prebiotic cream, and mushroom caps, the courier for our Legion commander arrived at our table. "Squad Commander Bresak," he requested. "Legion Chief Mrak wants to see you." I nodded as I drank the last bit of my juice. I gestured with my hand to my men, and we ascended the steps to the mission control center. The dark light of the multi-storied room, illuminated by the teal light of the CRT displays, conveyed its importance. At a table sat Legion Chief Toriaz Marak, the commander of the 500 soldiers at this base. A direct descendant of Ambassador Tevr Marak, who had been on the team to intercept the human probe bearing our deceiver, Toriaz had accessed a document containing the skills gained from his progenitor's service and intelligence, and employed them to deceive Nicor Hyo, the puppet leader of our original homeworld of Malonius, into providing his company, Malonic, refueling the 3 moons of the gas giant Tessiab, so that the Empire of Sol would have enough hydrogen for nuclear fusion and spacecraft fuel. However, Nicor was unaware of Toriaz's plan to train up a resistance army, so when Toriaz had begged for numerous expansions to the residential and refueling stations, so each moon could sustain 2 million each, numerous 3-dimensional printers, and 15 industrial soldering machines, Hyo agreed. While Tessiab is far from our home, Toriaz had made a clever decision. The moon Kiriata is rich in iron, titanium, silicon, nitrogenous stones, and magnetic rocks, which we use for the manufacture of starships, fertilizer, and railguns. The moon Desaad had an ocean underneath its surface, and numerous pocket ecosystems in caverns and grottos, which enabled it to become a giant in food production for both Malonius and the Malonic Liberation Army. Finally, the moon Lyrii, where I stand, has numerous veins of uranium, which we use for nuclear weapons and armor-piercing bullets. Meanwhile, Tessiab has supplied our resistance with large reserves of hydrogen, which we use in our fusion reactors for power and starships for propellant. Additionally, because it is explosive, we've also been known to use it as a way to sabotage our human oppressors. Squad Commander Bresak, Toriaz began, I need you to perform our biggest, riskiest mission yet. Go on, I replied cynically. The last time he had said that, we had been ambushed by being presented Kesark Bastion. When our ships rescued us from the surface, the humans obliterated half our fleet and drove all Malonic Liberation Army soldiers off Malonius and back to Tessiab, where we now are being shelled into submission. We've been able to travel to 2 other systems using our knowledge of bidirectional wormholes to colonize 2 planets, Toriaz continued. I think it is time we evacuate to our colonies. We can use the resources there to rebuild our movement. The Asikampa system is a good place. Raise families, build our strength up, and teach the goals of our rebellion to your children. One day I know we will liberate Malonius from the humans. What about you? I asked him, concerned. As the Xoine saying goes, every good warlord fights with his army. When you all leave, me and the commanders on Kiriata and Desaad will initiate the self-destruct sequences, so they can't obtain our mathematical formulae used for bidirectional wormholes and our special stargates that employ this technology. The room shook vehemently, causing cables to burst out of the walls and dust to fall from the roof. They're getting closer. Take the subterranean wormhole to Excelsior Citadel on Asikampa Primus. The room quaked again. Go, now. Me and my men rushed for the emergency staircase and took it to the armory, where we gathered our Mathezr guns. Afterwards, we descended the staircase again to the very bottom of the base, 1 hectorat under the surface. Afterwards, we charged down a hallway to the personal stargate. Unlike the portals used to transport large ships between star systems, the personal stargate was intended for people to pass through, and boy, were there many people who wanted to pass through today. As soon as the crowd cleared out, Therios went first, followed by Chula and Tiexi. I insisted that Zvonarek go before me, but he refused. Reluctantly, I passed through the portal. After I passed through the chrome-colored sphere that reflected the hallway, I stepped out into a large room with a vaulted ceiling. Zvonarek followed me. Then the portal closed. The chrome sphere that reflected the room we had teleported into rapidly shrunk until it was too small for us to see with our naked eyes. Were there any others? I asked. Fordi, Zvonarek exhaled, his bulky shoulders sinking. Several weird creatures with claws and drills in their snouts came at us. One of the soldiers pushed me through before he initiated the portal's self-destruct sequence. The humans had utilized one of their artificially created organisms to burrow into our base. Now, 40 soldiers were dead from the attack. I stepped out of the large chamber and descended a flight of stairs. That was when I beheld the site of Excelsior Citadel. My great-grandparents had told me what the Mathezr, capital city of Osirax, was like before humanity invaded. Tall high-rises of stone with elaborate carvings, numerous wide avenues to accommodate vehicles and pedestrians, and several waterways that fractured the urban feel of the city. From my perch on the skyway between the building we had teleported into and another high-rise, I got the impression Excelsior Citadel was designed to mimic this description, from the many broad streets and aqueducts between buildings and a crossing under streets. While most of the buildings were made of glass and metal due to the prevalence of silicate materials on Acicampa primus and the large reserves of iron in the crust, there were a few buildings of stonework, mainly those belonging to the government. For being a terraformed planet, Acicampa primus had several forests of large ferns, conifers, and a species of human trees known as live oaks spreading throughout the valley that had once been a peaked ring crater. Through the thin atmosphere, I saw a few faint stars, even in the daylight. After entering another building, I was greeted by two Malonic women. "Hello," they greeted. "Welcome to Excelsior Citadel Housing Office. We will assign you an apartment for you to live in, a vehicle for you to drive, and a duty station." I nodded. One of the women withdrew a tablet from her dress's lapel pocket and began to read off of it. "Mathezr Bresak," she read. "You're assigned to the Kasek Residencies, Floor 11, Apartment 6. You are to receive a convertible sedan for your car. Tomorrow you will report to your duty station. Until then, enjoy yourself, and that's an order." I nodded. The other woman showed me to an elevator and took it down with me to the ground floor. I was then given my car, and I took it to the designated apartment block. After parking in the garage and taking the elevator up to my floor, I meandered down the hall to my room. I input the access code into the keypad, unlocking the door. The room was already furnished with wooden furniture and seating arrangements upholstered in hedgehog fur. To my left was a large bed and wardrobe. I had a small kitchenette with many cabinets, an electric stove mat, and a miraculous invention created before the human invasion of Malonius, a microwave oven. Between the kitchen and the bedroom was the common area, equipped with an overstuffed sectional and wooden coffee table. Across from it was a balcony that overlooked the city's downtown area. Next to my bed was a bathroom with a bath basin, a latrine, and a washing basin. I was grateful for the apartment, as it suited my needs. I went to the wardrobe, noticing an assortment of civilian clothes, as well as uniforms folded neatly on the shelves. I then opened one of the cabinets in the kitchenette, prospecting for further bounties. There was a vast assortment of vegetables, fungi, fruits, meats, and animal products on designated shelves. Indulgently, I took a large pan off of a rack and cooked a large cut of salted hedgehog meat. Afterwards, I took several tubers and mushrooms out of their containers and placed them in a pan. As my meal cooked, I took a bath and dressed myself in the soft-fitted clothing from the wardrobe. I then turned the television on as I ate. It was almost like life before the space race and the human invaders, or at least that's what I've watched in scraps of film recording. As the sun set, I collapsed onto my bed, exhausted. I was thankful for the pamphlet I had written before my deployment to Malonius, as I felt that it influenced the creation of this city. Within the short span of a few months, we used our laser technology to carve stone from the surrounding mountains, and our supply of genetically engineered animals created by the humans to create this large city as a last bastion. Like the foxes on Earth, we had victory over the humans again. The next morning, I changed into my uniform and drove downtown to the base. Seeing the other cars on the road and civilians smiling at me as I drive by brings hope back to me. Although Lyrii, and quite possibly all of the moons of Tessiab, have fallen, we had one last bastion we were rebuilding civilization on, many parsecs away from the Empire of Sol. I parked in the nearby garage and walked up the flight of stairs into the complex of pyramids and high-rises that was the base. When I clocked in, I was told Base Chief Rekior Mashak wanted to see me. I took the elevator down to the section of the base that was the control room for the defense satellite array in the system. He and another in a leather suit turned from a CRT display depicting a starship to face me. "Mathezr Bresak," he greeted. "Welcome to Excelsior Citadel Military Base. I am in charge of the Extraterrestrial Defense Division of the Malonic Liberation Army. We have just made contact with another civilization. It doesn't match the patterns of any other civilization under the control of the Empire of Sol. Because of this, I'm extending to you the choice of going to investigate the ship with a group of teammates, to learn the purpose of these aliens in our system." "Yes, Chief," I said. Inside, I was nervous because of the last time my civilization had made contact with another species. Yet, this was the mission I had been training for, and I had to fulfill my duty. As I stepped onto the bridge of the starship Rare Day, the many CRT displays cast greenish-blue lights around the computer operators. In the center of the bridge sat Ricard Chesk, the captain of the Rare Day. Through the window I saw the alien ship, a cylindrical craft with several rings around it. We were to dock with it in a few hours. As I made my way to the airlock with my other teammates, I hoped that whomever was piloting that ship would aid our cause, or at least avoid aiding the Empire of Sol or any other potential threats. Once I felt us dock, we stepped into the airlock. In the junction between our two ships was a procession of creatures unlike any I've seen before. Each one had 2 antennae, a brace of green eyes, and green scales, and each wore purple robes. "Hello," I greeted. "Welcome aboard the—" One of them pointed at a CRT display in the airlock and made a long string of vowels, clicks, and nasal sounds. I guess he was trying to communicate with me. "Excuse me," I continued, "but— no," it said, pointing at the CRT display more urgently. I thought about it. My mental training for communication with other beings when I was a civilian in Osirax had prepared me for a moment like this. It occurred to me that the alien wanted a computer. "Juzuhar," I said to my teammate, "bring me a portable computer with the Makedran language, our history, some biological facts, and the Rebel manifesto saved on it." "Yes, sir." He left, leaving me to stare down the newcomers. After returning with the computer, a rectangular box with a flatter-than-usual CRT display and a fold-down keyboard, I handed it to one of the aliens. The lead one took it and bowed. "Nonk," it said. The aliens then disappeared into their ship. "So, now what?" Chuzuhar asked me. "We wait for them to return." Several hours passed, then the procession returned. The lead one carried a silver tube. After he grabbed both sides of it, he pulled them apart, causing a fabric-like material between them to hang out. On it, in perfect Makedran, was a greeting. "Hello, Malonic Liberation Army. We are the Waekmong, a species of ambassadors from the Waekmong Federation. We seek to learn more about you. Please come aboard." "You wait here," I told my teammates as I joined the Waekmong procession to go aboard their vessel. "But Squad Leader Bresak," Chuzuhar began. "Nuh-uh. You stay here with the ship and tell the captain my duties. I'm going aboard to try to gain a new ally." Chuzuhar nodded. While I knew my mission was risky, I knew it had to be done. The Malonics counted on it, and if I secured an alliance between our two peoples, I knew we could tip the scales in our favor. I belched aloud as I reclined in my plush chair, massaging my stomach and setting my half-eaten bowl of nuts and shredded cheese on the side table. The Waekmong have been treating me well. Too well, as I feel like I'm losing my soldierly discipline. I have been aboard their ship for a week now, and they have insisted on giving me their best. They gave me the best of my people's food and drink, sent me entertainment at my request through the intercom system, and clothed me in luxury clothes. In return, if I can even say that since they were so nice, I just had to answer their questions about the Empire of Sol and my people, the Malonics, and even further, the Makedran civilization, of which I am a direct descendant. So yeah, I've been abducted, but treated like a king. My Waekmong friend, whom I've nicknamed Thexer because his native name is too long and hard for me to pronounce, brought in another cart filled with even more Mathezr delicacies. Obviously, he did not notice the clutter of dishes and half-eaten portions yet. "Would you like some more shishaks, tubers, Mathezr?" he asked me in broken Mathezr. "Maybe one more plate," I groaned as I handed him a plate. "If you insist." Because my world was restricted to a windowless room in the center of the Waekmong ship, Thexer and several computers were my only connections to the outside world. Because of this, I tried to treat Thexer well. I'm allowed to communicate with Captain Rareday and my teammates through several computer terminals in my room. But so far, I didn't have much luck convincing the Waekmong of joining our cause. Hopefully my compliance and hedonism was pleasing the Waekmong, so they would be more open to my proposals. "Fancy some more tikar pie or hedra ribs?" Thexer pressed. My stomach grumbled, protesting that it was too full to receive even the tubers I forced down my throat, let alone the feast he had brought in. "I don't think that'd be wise," I hinted. Thexer bobbed his head, acknowledging my request, then set to work cleaning my mess of dirty plates and cups. "Thexer," I pressed, setting down my plate and pushing myself from my chair. "Have the Waekmong decided to help our cause?" Thexer stopped cleaning, sitting down on the filthy floor. "Yes." I was overjoyed. I could finally leave. "Well then, am I free to go?" Thexer paused. "No." "What do you mean, no? I have a rebellion to get back to." "You'll get back, eventually. We've decided to help your rebellion, but in a unique way. We're going to train you and several other soldiers to become the best you can be so you can take back the capital city." I was surprised by this. "The best soldiers we can be?" I asked. "Yes," he elaborated. "We've read about your history in the manifesto which you have written. While you have been successful at hit-and-run attacks and fighting head-to-head, you need innovation. You need to get behind enemy lines, infiltrate the puppet forces of your planet, and maintain your hold on the territory you've taken. Will you accept our help? If not, we shall go on our way." I paused. I was being presented with a berry and a sword. The berry being their aid if I accept this unknown form of training, the sword being they leave us on our own. "I accept," I relented. "Good, we leave for your system tomorrow. You may return to your ship if you wish." He then finished loading my dirty dishes and waste onto his cart. Taking the cart with him, he left me alone in the room. Again. I went to a computer and established contact with Rareday. "Captain Rareday," I began, "the Waekmong have accepted our proposal. However, they've decided to train up a special military force to help fight against the humans." Rareday's brow rose and his lower jaw opened. I could tell he was elated about the action. "Okay," he said, "but we need to get back soon if we're going to mount our counterattack on humanity." The feed then cut. I just had to hope the Waekmong were willing to train us as fast as possible. Since we fled our strongholds, we had left behind numerous pieces of our once proprietary technology in haste, enabling the humans to reverse engineer our technology and gain the upper hand once again. Once we returned to Excelsior Citadel, the Waekmong set to training me and several others as fast as possible. Among the recruits for the program were my old teammates Vonarak and Therios, along with 8 other soldiers I've never met before. Instead of the squads of 5 or 6 that made up the foundation of the Malonic Liberation Army, the captain of the Waekmong ship, Oatsk, as I'll christen him, had insisted that the new type of soldier we were supposed to be, the Imperial Busters, have units composed of 10 soldiers under one squad leader. The chain of command had reluctantly agreed. They first began with strength, agility, and stamina training. Throughout the course of several long, grueling days, we were pushed to our physical limits. At the end of each day, we were rewarded with a large feast of nutrient-rich foods. After gorging myself to quell my hunger pangs, I collapsed into bed, waking up the next morning to repeat the cycle with my comrades. The training of the Malonic Liberation Army was never this intense. After several days of the frenzy of exercise and feasting, the Waekmong decided we had developed enough strength, agility, and stamina for baseline combat situations. We ran through several obstacle courses and were required to watch workshops about infiltrating behind enemy lines, complex urban combat, and outsmarting our enemy with a group of soldiers. Afterwards, we would each play different roles in simulations. After 3 days of mental and combat training, we returned to physical exercise again to become stronger and more agile. A cycle of 6 days of hard exercise and 3 days of tactical training, with a day of rest between each period, made up our life for the next several weeks. During the periods, I noticed that there were at least 3 different variants of Wayakmong. While all had green scales and 2 antennae, there were substantial differences between them. The majority of them were stocky creatures with dome-shaped heads and protruding green eyes, and a wide mouth. There were some like my friend Thexer, who were sleek and had an elongated cranium, nub-like antennae, a long tentacle at each corner of the mouth, and circular gray eyes. The rarest were broad-torsoed, had egg-shaped heads, and narrow black eyes, while one that I'm not sure is a variant also has sensory tentacles around the edges of their wide mouths. I'm not sure I'll be able to figure them out, but I do know there is something odd about them, and they are unusually clandestine. At the end of 20 cycles, Thexer came to visit me. Says you're the epitome of a soldier, he told me as he looked me over. He believes that we're ready to lead a counterattack on Osirax within a few days. I was surprised. While I had gotten physically bigger and had dramatically improved in the combat sessions, I was surprised that Oatsk decided that me and my group were ready for an attack on the world capital of our planet. Are you serious? I asked. Yep, Thexer replied. He's preparing to leave tonight on our ship, and has requested that several of your ships accompany him. I was surprised. The Wayakmong were going above and beyond to help us, but I was not sure why. What were they up to? I boarded the transport ship with my comrades. While we wear the same uniforms as our comrades who are not in the Imperial Busters, our well-developed physiques, variation of the soldier's cap, and assaulting flag of the Malonic Liberation Army sewn on our upper right lapel signaled that we are a part of this new group. I looked around at my teammates. There were 11 of us in total. I was unsure if we were going to make it. Cheer up, Mathezr, Zvonarak comforted me. It'll be fine. A few hours later, we entered one of our ships, and we cruised to the Stargate. Instantaneously, we appeared right above Malonius. I looked out the window to the surface below. Within a few hours, a battle would be fought that would decide who would control our homeworld. My men and I jumped out of the transport shuttle, pulling the cords on our parachutes. Per the Wayakmong's guidance, we were dropping directly into the city below. We landed on the ground, and we rushed towards the gubernatorial palace on Malonius. The standard infantry of the Malonic Liberation Army was fighting alongside a group of Wayakmong soldiers to distract the forces of the Empire of Sol away from us. As we rushed between high-rises and derelict cars, I just kept thinking about this strategy. Because I had been scarred by the death of my brother the last time I was on Malonius, and our men had lost all our strongholds save Asacampa Primus, I felt unsure about this plan. It was true that the Wayakmong were helpful, but this strategy seemed risky. I just wonder what their motivations are. We soon breached the palace. Several human soldiers turned to face us, firing their rifles. One of them pressed a button on his forearm armor, triggering an alarm that resounded off of the stone walls of the building. When I was studying logistics, I had been inside the palace and was trained in what to do in case there was an emergency. The alarm signaled everyone inside to make it to the evacuation starship, which would head towards the Stargate for Earth in our solar system. I was not going to let Nikor, Hyo, and Anaglitha escape. They would be brought to justice. Zvonarak, Therios, I ordered. Come with me. We're going to board the evacuation starship and keep it from leaving the solar system. Zvonarak and Therios nodded, following me as I rushed through the various hallways. I soon came to the hallway leading to the launch pad, where I saw Anaglitha, Nikor, Rear Takai, the Imperial ministers from Malonius, the crew of the ship, and a horde of soldiers for the Empire of Sol board a large oval-shaped craft. Several muscular four-legged animals with stubby heads pulled cargo up a large ramp into the main cargo hold of the craft, escorted by several hexapods and octopods. Upon seeing the hulking octopods, I was reminded of my late brother. I had been grieving his sacrifice ever since we were defeated at Kesark Bastion, as he had attacked an octopod to ensure the escape of my team. Filled with rage, I swore that I would avenge Semchar. I, Zvanorak, and Therios crept behind the many crates of the landing pad for the escape ship. Once we were in front of the cargo loading ramp, we charged towards it. Just as we closed half of the distance, the fusion engines of the craft powered on, sending light blue flame out rotatable nozzles on its wings. I jumped up to grab the raising cargo ramp, with Therios joining me. Although Zvanorak attempted to join us, he fell to the ground, as he was heavier than either of us. I and Therios pulled ourselves over the ledge of the ramp, rolling down it into the cargo bay. Once inside, we began to navigate the craft. Several hexapods and octopods were kept in large, cryogenic tanks, kept dormant until they received a signal to be deployed. The labyrinthine hulls of the vessel sent us into several firefights with the Imperial soldiers. Eventually, we made it to the bridge. Nikor, Anaglitha, Rear Takai, and the captain of the vessel turned to face us. "Guards," Nikor screamed. "Open fire!" I dove behind a large AMOLED screen, powering my microwave rifle on. I aimed at the several guards approaching us, firing invisible streams of energy at them. On the other side of the bridge, Therios was doing the same. Without their protectors, we made our move towards Nikor and Anaglitha. The captain of the vessel raised his pistol and pulled the trigger. I dove out of the way and returned fire. With the heads of the Malonic puppet government isolated on the bridge, the two of us approached them. Nikor took a step back, intimidated by my presence. I aimed my rifle at him and pulled the trigger, sending a beam of microwave energy into his paunch. He doubled over as the fat began to melt and expand, stretching his undershirt before his torso ruptured. As he lay bleeding out, I emptied the rest of my magazine into Anaglitha. Unlike the humans, who usually executed or punished individuals for their crimes through prolonged torture or excessively gruesome methods, I was going to make the deaths of Nikor and Anaglitha swift, since too much energy has been expended on them already. I saw Rear Takai develop a frightened expression on his face. As he reached for a pistol on a computer terminal, I shot it out of his way with my rifle. Even though Rear Takai was Nikor's right hand, I felt I should spare him since he had lobbied for my placement as Nikor's logistical chief before I joined the Malonic Liberation Army. Albeit a small task to some, my temporary residence inside the palace had enabled me to navigate it today and bring justice to Malonius. "Rear Takai," I began, "there's no need to be afraid. I'm not going to kill you." Rear Takai developed a look of relief on his face. "I do want you to turn this ship around and turn yourself and the others aboard over to the Malonic Liberation Army. After you see how we've liberated our solar system and the other Malonic colonies, I'm sending you back to the Renda Emperor to tell him he's met his match, and he made a mistake invading our planet." Even though Rear Takai trembled, I knew he would be compliant. He took the helm of the ship and flew it towards the combined fleet of Waekmong and Malonic ships, sending a message that the puppet government had surrendered. It has been 2 months since the Battle of Osirax. Malonius and the other Malonic colonies are free from the oppression of humanity. In that time, I have been promoted to the rank of sub-chief, in charge of a whole force of Imperial busters that comprised thousands of Malonics. We sent Rear Takai back to Earth today, and I had just returned to Malonius. As soon as I was in Osirax, Mathezr summoned me to the palace, now converted into the headquarters of the Malonic Liberation Army. He and Chief Kebram, the leader of the Malonic Liberation Army on Asicampa Primus, who had become our leader after the death of Toriaz Marak, stood in front of a large CRT display. On it, I saw a planet. As I looked at it closer, I soon realized it was a real-time feed of Earth, the capital of the Empire of Sol. "You have impressed us both," Mathezr told me. "Because your team has demonstrated such skill in defeating the occupied worlds of the Empire of Sol, We're sending you into the belly of the beast. You will go to New Xanadu, the capital city of the Empire of Sol, and demand that the Rende Emperor himself surrenders. We have contacted other Malonic rebel factions who have also been successful in liberating other planets, and we're going to join forces to end this conflict once and for all. I turned my gaze back to the CRT screen. In a few days, we would head right to the seat of power for the Empire of Sol. If we were successful, we could swiftly win the war, but if we lost, all our progress would be undone. I stared out the window of the flagship of the Malonic Liberation Army, looking across the atmosphere of Earth below. My friend Mathezr stood by me. In order to mount our attack on Earth, we had partnered with the other main Malonic rebel movements, as this will be the largest battle that we will have waged, necessitating substantial reinforcements. You know, Mathezr, Mathezr told me, you should let us help you in this last battle. I know you are accomplished, and each group will be targeting a specific continent, but I think us Waekmong might have something to bring to the table. While I am suspicious of the Waekmong because they seem to be a nomadic species, and private about the inner workings of their society, I feel that they are just as valuable as the other factions we will be working with. Inform Oatsk, I suggested. It's up to him. Even though the Waekmong might help us in this event, I'm not sure that Mathezr is the best choice for a military operation. He nodded, then walked off the bridge to discuss the possibility with his compatriots. His departure reminded me of the strategy conference, which I went to immediately. I walked into the meeting room of the ship, where the leaders of the other factions were present. There was Krethios Mahrak, the leader of the Strong Fist faction, clothed in a fitted orange uniform that barely contained his bulky frame, and his assistant Messior Ketal. Next to him was Zumchoi Mwat, the leader of the Technolog faction, with his only original part of his body being the head and spinal cord fastened to his cybernetic body. The others were Lim Fass, the leader of the Mad Pilots, and Porya Seldaf, the leader of the Malonic Restoration Corps. This strategy meeting would not be easy, as each faction has its own agendas and beliefs. The Strong Fists believe that all problems Malonius face can be solved by militarism and the power of the strongest. The Technolog believe that the problem with Malonius was how natural we were, and that all problems could be solved through excessive bodily augmentation with technology. The Mad Pilots are just adrenaline junkies, and get thrills out of terrorizing humanity with suicide missions and acts of terror. Other than that, they have no real purpose other than letting Malonics live as they choose. The Malonic Restoration Corps has the closest beliefs to the Malonic Liberation Army. Though there is one principal difference. The Restoration Corps seeks to just restore the old order and balance of power, while the Malonic Liberation Army wants to improve the lives of our fellow men and free the other civilizations from the iron thumb of the Rende Emperor. I took my seat with them, and we began to discuss our plans. Earth is smaller than Malonius and many other Malonic colony worlds, so it will be easier to take than the other planets we have freed. Aside from the two polar caps, which are sparsely settled and mainly focused on the distribution of clean water to arid regions of the planet and production of hydrogen for fusion energy, there are three regions of importance. The first is a landmass known as the Americas, which is long and has a relatively uniform distribution of the population. The second is the landmass known as Afro-Eurasia, which has a sparser population in the region known as Africa, and the highest concentration in a megacity in a region known as East Asia. The third is a collection of islands in the Pacific Ocean, with some such as Japan and Indonesia being relatively powerful and densely populated, while others such as Australia and Hawaii have lower population densities and are economically weaker. With the main regions of Asia, known as India, Thailand, and China, having the densest populations, they will have the highest concentrations of military power and defenses. They are especially stronger around New Xanadu, the world capital of Earth. As we surveyed the city blocks, we found a few small clearings among the buildings our shuttles could land at. As we mapped the routes toward the Imperial Palace, we determined that we would have to move fast. There were a few sewers and emergency evacuation routes under the city we could use to reach the palace of the Renda Emperor. But it would be risky. Yet we all knew that it had to be done if we wanted to see our own civilization freed from the oppression of humanity. As I made my way to the hangar of the ship with several of my men and a pilot, Mathezr joined me. He had a large black canister in his hand with a lid that had a handle on it. "Oh, said I could go," he told me. "Mathezr," I asked, "what is in that canister?" He diverted his gaze from me. As we climbed into the shuttle, I knew instantly that I might have made a mistake. The Waekmong's privacy had facilitated Mathezr keeping the contents of the canister from being known to me. Several hours passed before we landed in New Xanadu. The dark, imposing buildings flashed with residual signage left on, indicating that the advertisement agencies lacked sponsors. There were a few abandoned cars in the street, along with a few genetically engineered pets that had escaped from homes, but the city was desolate. I stepped out of the shuttle and readied my guns. Mathezr followed me, letting the canister hang by his side. He had clutched it close to his torso the entire ride down, it making me think it could be some weapon of mass destruction. After the rest of the soldiers exited the shuttle, we made our way through the city. The shuttle then returned into the exosphere, ready to rescue us when we had completed our mission of forcing the Renda Emperor into a ceasefire and leaving our civilization alone. On the other side of the city, the Strong Fist and the Malonic Restoration Corps are landing to help us so we can all converge on the Imperial Palace. As we sneaked among the buildings, I was startled by a billboard showing an image of the Renda Emperor himself. The scarlet gold-hemmed collar of his robes pointed directly to his broad, angular face and black, bushy hair. Out of his almond-shaped eyes, I saw a pair of pupils in each surrounded by a green iris, a trait no other human I have seen bear that every Renda Emperor has endured. "So, I see you have decided to test our might," he said. "I see you all. I know all your movements. You may have liberated your planet for a little while, but we will take it again. Like your honorable governor said, foxes may adapt to their environment and survive, but they can be trapped." I dodged between the high-rises with Mathezr and my men, seeking shelter from the hideous face. "Oh yeah, Mathezr, I've heard all about you," he continued. "You took control of Malonius once again. You and your species nobility, is that it? Let me tell you something. I know why you're here. You've come to try and demand peace from me and my court. Oh yeah, Rear Takai told it all to me. The strange aliens you made contact with, the training, the portable microwave weaponry, and bi-directional wormholes using one Stargate. You think you're the epitome of creation, or evolution, or the universe, or whatever you want to call it. But you're just animals." I sneaked out the back door of a boba tea shop, running down the street. My men and Mathezr matched my pace. Now that the Renda Emperor was watching us, we felt a sense of urgency to end the affair as soon as possible. "And like animals, you shall die," he continued. "You miss your brother, don't you, Mathezr?" I stopped in my tracks. The Renda Emperor is more of a brute than I thought, as I have been able to resist all of his taunts until that one. Opening emotional wounds, he was trying to distract me. "Well, buddy," he continued, "what if I told you that you could see your brother tonight, and you could be surrounded by all your men? That's where our mutual friends come in. I know your position. I don't know which ones are with you, since I'm just receiving reports of your movements from the Internal Defense Ministry and seeing you all as flashing dots on my screen. However, I do know that the Tromokoriosi will end your goals. They will also hunt down your friends all across the city. Enjoy the afterlife, if you believe in it, Mathezr." That was when I experienced pure terror. 5 large insectoid creatures descended upon us. One of them grabbed Svonarak with his foreclaws, paralyzing him. Afterwards, he stuck a long proboscis into his neck and proceeded to suck. He appeared to become softer and more pliable, then shrunk as the monster sucked his innards out before stuffing the carcass in its jaws. I aimed my microwave rifle at one that was lumbering towards me and Thexer, causing it to explode. "Mathezr!" Therios shouted at me. "Complete the mission! We'll handle these beasts!" I then turned around to face him. I saw a Tromokorios stalk towards him, paralyzing him, then consuming him. After the morbid destruction of my friend, the monster turned to face me and sprinted towards me. I turned around and fled, with Thixer running beside me. "Oh yeah, Mathezr," I heard the Renda Emperor say. "If you're still alive, you see what I'm capable of. If you're dead, I'll say this to your men. Your leader is gone. Your bastion of hope, your idol, your hero, is dead. You have nothing left to fight for. Just turn yourselves over, and I'll spare you. If you like the military, you can be the chief generals of the Malonic colonies when we reconquer them. If not, I'll offer you whatever position you truly desire." Well, the hero my men idolized was still alive, and he was running to the Renda Emperor's palace to make him pay for all the generational trauma he created on my homeworld and the fear his predecessors created for countless other species. Amid the distractions of the billboard spewing the Emperor's demoralizing temptations, the shock I faced from my friends being eaten by humanity's new monsters, and the fact that Tromokorios was trailing me as fast as it could run, my attention turned to Thexer's container. What was in it? I saw Krethios Mahrak ahead, lifting a grate out of the road. Several strong-fist soldiers squeezed through the aperture. "Get down there!" he shouted. I and Thexer plunged into the darkness below. I heard the grate pulled over the hole and the thud of the Tromokorios above, stalking us. I then felt a strong surge of water splash into my face as Krethios fell into the sewage. He stood up a few seconds later. "The sewer will take us to the Imperial Palace," he said. "Me and my men will assault the exterior of the palace while you get into the courtyard through a smaller duct." "Can you accompany us?" I asked, then realizing my mistake. While the Wayakmong's training had caused my muscles to notably grow in size, most strong-fist soldiers were nearly twice my bulk, and some even had bulging stomachs testifying to the high-calorie diets each ate to maintain their hulking size. None of them would be able to fit through the smaller grate within the courtyard. It would only be me and Thexer, and his mysterious canister, once we reached the palace. We slogged through the sewers for several hours, coming to the grate under the palace. Krethios would continue on to the larger grate outside the palace grounds. I pushed the courtyard grate out of its place, and I and Thexer crawled out. For being the Renda Emperor's stronghold, the Imperial Palace lacked sophisticated security. Guards were even absent. The fur along the back of my neck and shoulders stood on end, as I recalled a similar scene when we landed in New Xanadu a few hours earlier. I drew my pistol and ran into the palace, feeling that there was something bad awaiting us at some point. As we sprinted through the halls, lined in velvet and neon, I became increasingly paranoid. Then we reached the throne room. The Renda Emperor sat on a crystal throne with leather cushioning. He was surrounded by all of his advisors and royal court, mostly comprising humans, Coriad, and members of Felid species known as the Ye-Par. The former members of the Malonic puppet governments were also present. The purple neon and scarlet velvet and leather of the room emphasized the sinister mood I had sensed since we left the sewer. "So, Mathezr," the Renda Emperor said, "I see you've joined me. I knew you'd make it. So, let's hear your proposal." As I opened my mouth, he interrupted me. "I know what you're gonna say. Live at peace with a free Malonius, or you'll rain fire on our pretty little planet with your ships. Oh, I've heard this speech many times. You know, you think you're the heroes, but you're not. We're the heroes. Let me explain myself. Millennia ago, we had experienced a tumultuous period of our history. At the time, we thought our civilization had peaked. We had invented artificial intelligence, nuclear energy, genetic engineering, reusable spacecraft. But we had one flaw we failed to overcome. Some said it was because society was too uniform, that we needed to find new ways to live. We eventually reached the stars. As we spread, we encountered numerous civilizations, and we waged war with them, usually after we had been deceived into joining forces with them. That was when we realized the problem. It wasn't that people didn't have enough avenues to express themselves. It was that we had created too many niches people could fill. As a result, we changed our global paradigm. Want to end wars? Get rid of nation-states. Want to end debates about too much or too little technology? Control what kinds and how many innovations each generation receives to ensure we are always progressing, and kill anyone who promotes any deviation from the norm. Think religions debating is what is causing so much division? Make the subjects keep their spiritual ideas to themselves. Want to stop being abused by aliens? Conquer them before they conquer you. For 4 centuries, the Empire of Sol has slowly grown, and is now rapidly expanding. We are assimilating aliens every few years now instead of decades. And how do we maintain peace and order throughout our corner of the universe? We break them into submission, and if they don't obey, we turn their homeworlds into hell. A few were smart and obeyed immediately. Others were eliminated completely. Right now, Mathezr, your species is at a crux. If we let your species live free, you will eventually become a blight to the universe, since you insist on maintaining your own little patch of space for yourself to fester in. Eventually, you'll want to expand, and you'll bring suffering to the rest of the galaxy. That's why we need you to surrender. It's your species' life for 10,000 generations, or your eventual extinction. You're wrong, I contradicted him. We're not like you. We may be flawed, but you and your royal ideology is the true blight to the galaxy. You force yourselves onto people who are weak for the taking, like my ancestors, and then you twist it into some noble crusade to purify the galaxy of tribalism, technocracy, and ecological disasters. Well then, the Renda Emperor stood up. Let me help you with your decision. I saw a small pistol come out of his sleeve. He pointed it at my chest before I had time to raise my rifle. I then felt a pain in my chest and a burning sensation. I then realized he had a microwave pistol and was causing the cells of my heart to weaken. As I dropped my gun and clutched my chest in pain, he descended the leather steps to his throne, encircling me as I writhed in pain. Your soldiering days are over, Mathezr, he said as he circled me like a predator about to strike its prey. We learned how to make portable microwave weaponry from the weapons you left behind when you retreated from Malonius and Tessiab. The walls of your heart are now paper-thin, and the valves are weak. If you run for prolonged periods of time, it'll give out and you'll die. However, I'm kind enough to let you live. Surrender yourself now, and I'll give you a new heart. You can go back to your original life. Heck, you can even be the governor of Malonius, since you have earned quite a following. All you have to do is join me. I'll never join you, I grunted. Suit yourself, then, he said. Then Mathezr did the unexpected. He stomped right into the Renda Emperor's personal space, startling him. Actually, you've met your demise, Mathezr defied, grabbing the side of the canister with his other hand and twisting the handle at the top. A hidden light then turned violet, showing a change in status. Since you've told us about your culture, I'll tell you about mine. That was when I learned more than I wanted to about his species and about the canister's contents. The Waekmong had once been a powerful race. Although they remained within their star cluster, they had developed a rich civilization. However, it all ceased to exist as a result of a colonial war. The Waekmong had genetically engineered themselves to be best suited for the roles and environments they would live in, eventually creating an intense form of tribalism as incredibly niche groups fought for dominance. Additionally, the Waekmong had invented the ultimate doomsday weapon, self-replicating nanobots that could feed off of any material. In order to quell the war on the colonies, the Waekmong from the planet they originated on dispersed them into the atmospheres of the rebel colonies. Within a few hours, the nanobots would consume the entirety of the planet, leaving no traces of it behind. While fear of the weapon scared some colonies into submission, one faction raided a Waekmong warship, took a sample of nanobots, then launched it towards the Waekmong homeworld. Just when the government of the Wayakmong thought they had won, they had experienced the apocalypse. The nanobots consumed their homeworld right down to what was once the mantle. The ships that had survived the attack went on a rampage, and colonies attacked each other with the nanobots until nothing was left of the Wayakmong's interstellar empire. The descendants of every fleet soon realized their mistake. Although neither party united, the groups on ships from each fleet decided to travel to a different galaxy to warn others about extreme tribalism and unity, hoping to use the destruction of their species as the prime cautionary tale. Humanity failed to learn the lesson on their own, Mathezr continued, so I know you won't take it from us. However, I will say this. The canister in my arms contains a sample of the planet-consuming nanobots, ready to disperse if I lift this lid and release their containment capsule. So, if you kill Mathezr, I'll destroy this planet, and if you kill me, you'll unleash the same destruction, since the Handle will notice that I'm not holding onto the canister anymore. I saw the Renda Emperor's narrow eyes widen substantially in terror. He knew he had met his demise. "Why?" he gasped. "You!" Mathezr began to lift the lid. The entire court screamed in terror. The Emperor fell to Mathezr's feet. "So," Mathezr continued as he replaced the lid, "if you want to see your planet live another day, there's going to be some conditions that apply." The Emperor nodded. "First, give my friend a new heart so he can live the life he wants. Second, I want you to sue for peace with the Malonics. Third, I want you to send your ambassadors to all your territories, declaring that they are now free to operate as they wish and apologize for your oppression. Lastly, I want you to abdicate the throne and let civilization develop as it chooses." "How can you do this to us?" the Renda Emperor shouted. "Because of my friends the bots. Now, if you don't want me to lift the lid, and you truly care about yourself, or galactic peace, or whatever it is, I want you to meet all of my demands within 1 of your weeks." Then, adding with a stronger tone, he concluded, "And no delays." After years of oppressing our people, and years of Malonic rebel factions fighting against the Renda Emperor, we had finally achieved true peace with the aid of the Wayakmong. I still think about that speech Mathezr made every now and then. Things have changed a lot in the last 5 years. Humanity surrendered its vast empire, and all 13 civilizations under the defunct Empire of Sol now live as they choose. Even humanity has developed new nation-states on Earth and its colonies. With many new perspectives permeating our little portion of the universe, there have been numerous innovations in technology and philosophy that have benefited society as a whole. When I returned from a victory on Earth, I settled back in Osirax. Some wanted me to be the supreme world leader. I declined, and restored the old World Forum of Malonius and individual nation-states, so everyone had a say in governing our local, global, and interstellar affairs. Instead, I am now the chief of the Makedran army, which is now spreading peace and prosperity instead of the fear it perpetrated in the years leading up to the human invasion. Within that time, each civilization made true peace with one another, and the Wayakmong of our galaxy now ferry species from world to world. In fact, the 13 races that were once part of the Empire of Sol now coexist with 200 other races from various interstellar coalitions and empires, and trade thrives. Everyone is becoming increasingly prosperous, and a bright future is ahead of us. Even the Wayakmong have found a new homeworld, and are terraforming it to their needs. I often stroll with my wife along the skyway of our condominium block, looking at the skyline of Osirax. When we have children, I will be able to tell them of the history of our race and point to the exact buildings where certain events took place. Today, I got in my car and drove to the countryside with Mathezr and my wife. We eventually came to the foothills of the mountain range where Kesark Bastion was located. After parking, we ascended a flight of stairs to its apex, where a statue of my deceased brother, Zemchar, triumphantly stood. Several Malonics and humans were standing around it, admiring it. I had commissioned it so future generations would remember our struggles and learn from them. On a plaque at its base was his biography and a call to action for future generations. I had been sacrificed to end an oppressive ruler. To end the perpetual deaths of those like me, be mindful about how you rule and how you maintain your authority, because if you do it wrong, you could cause the demise of your civilization. As I read it, I looked up into the evening sky. While Semchar should not have died, his sacrifice had motivated me to restore freedom to the Malonics. While civilizations will continue to rise and fall, and there will be oppressors and servant leaders, the tumultuous Malonic Liberation War had created a universe richer than fantasy many could now enjoy, and will continue to partake in for generations to come.
Родной порог и сердце вновь замирает вдруг, как без смысла слов. Ты ждешь ли меня, мой друг? Среди дорог далек порой возвращение час, но навсегда со мной. Тепло твоих добрых глаз, за все благодарю, лишь для тебя горю и вновь говорю. Как бы не был далеко я, не приносят мне покоя, ни лесов дыхание, ни морской прибой. В час тяжелых испытаний, годы странствий и скитаний, все мои надежды связаны с тобой. Счастливых дней не меркнет свет, но уйдут года и путь осенних лет. Пройдешь ли со мной тогда? Часы разлук сплетают путь, жизни нашей нить, но расставание грусть не сможет нас разлучить. За все благодарю, лишь для тебя горю и вновь говорю. Как бы не был